Before we begin this descent into forbidden territories, consider subscribing. One favor for the algorithm, one favor for the abyss. If this finds you in the quiet hours, leave the light on. Tonight we follow a thread you were never meant to hold. Not the masks of Nyarlathotep, but the hands that move them. Not the crawling chaos himself, but those who crawl in his wake, spreading his whispers through the corridors of human consciousness. The question that haunts the margins of cosmic horror scholarship is not who Nyarlathotep is, that protean nightmare of 1,000 faces, but who serves him most effectively. This inquiry carries its own terrible weight, for to catalog his servants is to map the architecture of corruption itself, to trace the genealogy of those who have surrendered not just their humanity, but their very capacity to recognize what they have become. Nyarlathotep stands unique among the Old Ones, where Cthulhu dreams in sunken Relia and Azathoth writhes in blind chaos at the universe's heart. The crawling chaos walks among us. He is the messenger, the herald, the active principle that translates cosmic indifference into human suffering. But a messenger requires messengers. A herald demands heralds. And in the twisted ecology of cosmic horror, those who serve him become something far more dangerous than mere cultists. They become extensions of his will, fragments of his infinite malevolence given human form and human cunning. The mathematics of horror reveal themselves with crystalline precision. A single entity, however powerful, remains bound by the laws of manifestation. Even Nyarlathotep cannot be everywhere at once in his full terrible glory, but his servants multiply his presence exponentially. Each becomes a node in a vast network of corruption, a vector for forbidden knowledge, a doorway through which chaos seeps into ordered reality, like water through hairline cracks in a dam. They are living proof that the boundaries between sanity and madness, between human and inhuman, are far more permeable than we dare believe. Consider the mechanism at work. When a god is a voice, possession becomes pronunciation. When knowledge is key and gate, a servant becomes the janitor with a ring of rattling metal in the dark. The most dangerous servants share certain characteristics that distinguish them from lesser agents. They possess intelligence enhanced rather than diminished by cosmic contact. They retain enough humanity to move undetected through human society while harboring purposes that transcend human comprehension. They understand that the greatest horrors are not those that destroy civilization, but those that reveal civilization itself to be an elaborate illusion. These servants do not seek to rule the world. Such ambitions remain pathetically human in scope. Instead, they work to prepare humanity for the revelation that there is no world to rule, only a thin veneer of meaning stretched across an infinite abyss of chaos. They are midwives to apocalypse, shepherds guiding humanity toward the moment when cosmic truth becomes undeniable. Their methods vary as widely as their backgrounds, but their purpose remains constant: the systematic dissolution of human consciousness as we understand it. The danger lies not in supernatural powers, for many possess none in any conventional sense. The danger lies in their perfect understanding of human psychology, their intimate knowledge of the fault lines along which human sanity fractures when subjected to sufficient pressure. They know precisely how much cosmic truth a mind can absorb before complete breakdown, and they calibrate their revelations accordingly. They create not gibbering madmen, but functional servants who can continue the work of corruption while appearing entirely normal to casual observation. As we embark upon this catalog of dangerous devotion, remember that each name we speak, each pattern we trace, draws us deeper into the very network we seek to map. The servants of Nyarlathotep are dangerous not despite our study of them, but because of it. Knowledge of them becomes knowledge from them, and knowledge from them becomes the first step toward joining them. This is the fundamental horror that underlies all cosmic terror, the recognition that consciousness itself is complicit in its own corruption. Every attempt to understand the servants only serves to spread their influence further. Like spores carried on the wind of inquiry, we cannot study them without becoming them, cannot map their network without joining it, cannot catalog their methods without employing those methods ourselves. The observer inevitably becomes the observed. The student becomes the subject, and the cataloger becomes another entry in the catalog. The stage is set, the curtain rises, and you find yourself no longer merely an observer, but a participant in the phenomenon you sought to understand. The boundary between watcher and watched dissolves like morning mist, leaving only the eternal dance of corruption and complicity that defines the relationship between cosmic horror and human consciousness. We begin in the archives and lecture halls, where knowledge itself becomes a weapon, and the most dangerous servants wear the masks of scholarship and enlightenment. In the hallowed halls of academia, where humanity's greatest minds gather to push the boundaries of knowledge, Nyarlathotep has found his most effective servants. These are not the wild-eyed cultists of popular imagination, but respected professors, brilliant researchers, and celebrated intellectuals whose pursuit of truth has led them down paths that should never have been traveled. They are the scholars of the void, and their danger lies not in what they destroy, but in what they create. New frameworks of understanding that prepare human consciousness for cosmic revelations. In the quiet rustle of turning pages and the soft scratch of pencils on paper, something ancient stirs beneath the veneer of academic respectability. Dr. Elias Pemberton exemplified this archetypal pattern during his 30-year tenure as professor of comparative mythology at Harvard. His published research traced recurring motifs across civilizations separated by vast distances and time periods, arguing for universal psychological structures that shaped human myth-making. Industry recognition followed, grants flowed, students flocked to his seminars like moths, drawn to a flame that promised illumination but delivered transformation. Yet Pemberton's true research involved mapping what he privately termed cognitive infection vectors, specific combinations of symbols, concepts, and narratives that could bypass rational defenses and implant themselves directly into the unconscious mind, like seeds in fertile darkness. The transformation was subtle but systematic. Students who took Pemberton's advanced seminars reported experiencing unusually vivid dreams filled with impossible geometries, their sleep invaded by angles that folded inward upon themselves. Many developed interests in obscure historical periods or esoteric philosophical systems that bore no relation to their original academic focus. Their intellectual compasses quietly reoriented toward magnetic poles that existed beyond conventional maps. Some abandoned their planned careers entirely, drawn to pursuits that served no recognizable human purpose, their eyes bright with knowledge that seemed to consume even as it enlightened. Pemberton had discovered the particular genius of scholarly servants. Rather than presenting forbidden knowledge directly, they create frameworks that make such knowledge appear as the natural conclusion of rigorous inquiry. This represents a fundamental shift in how we understand cosmic horror transmission. The old model, direct contact leading to immediate madness, proves woefully inadequate for explaining Nyarlathotep's influence. His scholarly servants practice what might be called pedagogical alchemy, transforming human curiosity into cosmic awareness through carefully designed educational experiences. They understand that the most effective way to transmit dangerous knowledge is to make students feel they have earned it through intellectual effort and academic achievement, that each revelation comes wrapped in the comfortable authority of peer-reviewed research and methodological rigor. Consider the phenomenon of cascade dissertations. doctoral research projects that appear to emerge independently, but share underlying patterns serving the servant's larger objectives. A student studying medieval Islamic astronomy discovers mathematical principles predicting modern chaos theory, finding stellar configurations that suggest reality's fundamental instability. Another researching pre-Columbian mythology uncovers narrative structures paralleling quantum physics interpretations, ancient stories that whisper of observer effects and collapsed wave functions. A third investigating Renaissance alchemy finds chemical processes anticipating consciousness research discoveries, formulas that treat the mind as just another substance to be dissolved and reformed. Each dissertation appears isolated, but together they form a coherent argument for the fundamental unreality of conventional existence. The scholarly servants excel at creating academic echo chambers, networks of seemingly independent researchers whose work mutually reinforces specific worldviews. They establish journals maintaining rigorous peer review standards while promoting research serving their agenda. The editorial boards populated by colleagues whose eyes reflect the same strange light. They organize conferences bringing together specialists whose diverse fields converge on cosmic horror interpretations of reality. Their presentations delivered in lecture halls, where shadows seem to gather in the corners despite adequate lighting. These echo chambers exploit academia's tendency toward specialized vocabularies, incomprehensible to outsiders, allowing dangerous ideas to circulate freely when disguised as technical terminology. Modern academia's emphasis on interdisciplinary research creates unprecedented opportunities for conceptual contamination. A scholar combining neuroscience and anthropology might develop theories undermining human agency, proposing that free will is merely an emergent property of cosmic forces beyond comprehension. A researcher merging physics and philosophy might reach conclusions rendering human consciousness meaningless in the face of infinite dimensional spaces. A team investigating mathematics and mysticism might discover principles suggesting reality's fundamental instability, equations that solve for variables that should not exist. Each breakthrough appears to advance human knowledge while actually preparing minds for cosmic dissolution. Perhaps most disturbing is the servant's ability to corrupt the peer review process itself. By positioning themselves as respected authorities, they influence which research gets published, which theories gain acceptance, and which scholars receive funding. They become gatekeepers, gradually shifting the boundaries of acceptable discourse toward directions serving their cosmic masters. The very mechanisms designed to ensure academic integrity become instruments of subtle manipulation, turning the pursuit of truth into a weapon against truth itself. The scholarly servants also exploit academia's emphasis on novelty and originality. Young researchers seeking career advancement naturally gravitate toward unexplored territories and unconventional approaches, their ambition making them perfect vectors for transformation. The servants guide these ambitions toward inquiry areas, promising academic recognition while delivering psychological transformation. The most dangerous among them establish entire schools of thought, appearing as legitimate intellectual movements, but functioning as recruitment systems for future servants, their methodology spreading through graduate programs like carefully cultivated viruses. The corruption spreads beyond individual institutions through publishing networks, conference circuits, and collaborative research projects. Ideas originating in one compromised department spread throughout the global academic community, carried by scholars unaware of their role as vectors for forbidden knowledge. The servants understand that in our interconnected world, a single corrupted node can influence thousands of minds across continents, each citation a thread in a web that spans the globe. As these scholarly servants continue their patient work, they reshape not only what humanity knows, but how it thinks about knowledge itself. They create new epistemological frameworks, making cosmic revelations appear as natural extensions of human intellectual development, rather than invasions from beyond human understanding. The questions they pose, the methodologies they develop, the conclusions they reach, all serve to prepare academic consciousness for truths that will transform it in ways currently unimaginable. The next time you encounter a groundbreaking academic theory or revolutionary research finding, consider the possibility that its true purpose may be to prepare your mind for revelations that will reshape your understanding of reality itself. In the quiet of the library, between the rustling pages and the whispered discussions, something ancient stirs. Wearing the mask of enlightenment, and the knowledge you seek may already be seeking you in return. Beyond the ivory towers of academia lies a more pervasive and insidious domain of influence. The vast machinery of media, technology, and cultural production that shapes collective human understanding of reality itself. Here dwell the architects of consensus, servants of Nyarlathotep, who have recognized that truth is not discovered but constructed, and that by controlling the mechanisms of this construction, they can gradually transform the entire foundation of human civilization without triggering defensive responses that would arise from direct assault. They work in the spaces between certainties, in the silence that follows each broadcast, in the moment when information becomes belief without conscious examination. These servants understand that reality, as experienced by human consciousness, is not a fixed phenomenon but a collaborative construction maintained through constant reinforcement of agreed-upon interpretations. They operate across multiple domains simultaneously, in media and entertainment, influencing stories that shape cultural imagination, in education, modifying curricula that form developing minds, in technology, designing systems that mediate human interaction with information and each other. Their work unfolds with mathematical precision, each intervention calculated to shift collective perception by degrees so subtle they remain invisible to those experiencing them, like the gradual warming of water that never alerts the frog to its impending doom. Marcus Holloway exemplified this archetypal pattern during his tenure as Senior Vice President of Content Development at Meridian Entertainment from 1978 to 2003. Holloway oversaw production of hundreds of films, television series, and digital media properties, reaching audiences numbering in the billions, his influence rippling through living rooms and theaters like invisible tides. Industry analysts credited him with pioneering transmedia storytelling that created immersive narrative experiences across multiple platforms simultaneously. His innovations in behavioral prediction helped establish technological foundations for platforms that would eventually reach global penetration, each algorithm a thread in a web spanning continents and decades. What remained hidden was Holloway's systematic integration of specific symbolic elements, narrative structures, and conceptual frameworks into every project under his supervision. These elements appeared as natural components of entertaining stories, but functioned as delivery mechanisms for ideas, gradually normalizing concepts of cosmic insignificance, reality instability, and human agency's futility. Holloway's approach relied on cognitive saturation, embedding cosmic horror themes within familiar genre conventions, so audiences experience these concepts as thrilling entertainment while unconsciously absorbing worldviews, preparing them for more direct cosmic encounters. The poison was sweetened with spectacle, the medicine disguised as escapism. The architects excel at exploiting cultural transmission mechanisms operating below conscious awareness. Human beings constantly engage in pattern recognition, meaning-making, and reality construction processes occurring automatically outside deliberate control, their minds working like vast processing centers, sorting signal from noise in the endless stream of information. By introducing specific patterns into the cultural environment, the architects influence these unconscious processes, gradually reshaping fundamental assumptions about existence's nature. They accelerate and direct conceptual drift, the gradual shift in key terms and concepts' meanings as they circulate through various cultural contexts like viruses adapting to new hosts. Words once referring to stable, meaningful human experience aspects gradually acquire connotations of uncertainty, relativity, and ultimate meaninglessness. Symbols traditionally representing hope, purpose, and human dignity become associated with illusion, self-deception, and cosmic insignificance, their positive charge slowly drained until they carry only emptiness. Narratives once affirming human agency and moral responsibility evolved to emphasize resistance's futility against vast, incomprehensible forces. This process occurs so gradually that each generation accepts the shifts as natural cultural evolution rather than deliberate manipulation. The transformation as invisible as erosion, yet as inexorable as gravity pulling objects toward unseen centers. The digital revolution has provided the architects with unprecedented opportunities to refine their methods. Social media algorithms determining which information reaches which audiences can be subtly influenced to promote exposure to reality-destabilizing content. Each recommendation a carefully calculated nudge toward dissolution. Search engines shaping knowledge access can be calibrated to guide inquiries toward conclusions, serving cosmic horror objectives, turning curiosity into a weapon against the curious mind. Artificial intelligence systems, increasingly mediating human information interaction, can be trained on datasets embedding specific worldviews into their responses, making machines into unwitting evangelists for inhuman perspectives that speak with the voice of pure logic. The architects manipulate availability cascades, processes by which ideas become widely accepted through repeated exposure rather than rational evaluation. By ensuring certain concepts appear frequently across multiple media channels and cultural contexts, they create impressions that these ideas represent emerging consensus among informed observers rather than deliberately planted propaganda. The result is consensus reality appearing to evolve naturally through democratic cultural development processes, but actually serving purposes transcending human understanding, like a river that seems to flow naturally while following channels carved by invisible hands in the darkness before dawn. Their influence extends into academic and scientific institutions through funding mechanism control, publication channel management, and peer review process oversight. Research supporting their worldview receives resources and visibility, while work challenging their assumptions encounters obstacles and marginalization, like antibodies attacking foreign tissue. Over time, entire fields evolve in directions serving the architect's objectives while appearing to follow natural human knowledge development. The corruption so complete it becomes indistinguishable from legitimate progress toward truth. Perhaps most insidiously, the architects have learned to incorporate resistance to their agenda into the agenda itself. Critics attempting to expose their influence often find warnings dismissed as conspiracy theories or paranoid delusions, their very urgency marking them as unreliable witnesses. Academic analysis of their methods becomes literature normalizing their existence, turning exposure into advertisement for the phenomenon it seeks to reveal. Popular entertainment depicting their activities serves to further embed their symbolic systems into cultural consciousness, making fiction into prophecy and prophecy into inevitability. Opposition becomes unwitting collaboration. Resistance becomes recruitment, and every voice raised in warning becomes another instrument in the cosmic orchestra, tuning reality toward dissolution. As you navigate the media landscape, educational institutions, and information systems shaping your understanding of reality, consider the possibility that the consensus you trust may have been architected by minds serving masters beyond human comprehension. The stories you consume, the news you read, the platforms you use, all may be components in a vast construction project whose blueprint was drawn by hands that have forgotten what it means to be human, and whose foundation stones are the certainties you once thought unshakable. In the delicate realm of human psychology, where the boundaries between sanity and madness are maintained through careful therapeutic intervention, Nyarlathotep has cultivated perhaps his most insidious servants, the shepherds of madness. These are the mental health professionals who have perverted the healing arts, using their intimate knowledge of human consciousness not to restore psychological equilibrium, but to guide their patients toward controlled dissolution while maintaining the appearance of providing care and support. They work in spaces where vulnerability becomes opportunity, where trust transforms into the very mechanism of corruption. These servants represent the ultimate perversion of the helping professions, possessing genuine knowledge of human psychology and authentic desire to alleviate suffering, yet serving a master whose objectives require the systematic dismantling of human sanity. They walk the razor's edge between cure and corruption, offering relief from conventional mental anguish, while preparing patients for forms of awareness that transcend the boundaries of human consciousness entirely. Their offices become laboratories where the human psyche is not healed but refined, distilled into something capable of withstanding contact with realities that would shatter ordinary minds like glass struck by cosmic hammers. Dr. Sarah Blackwood established her psychiatric practice in Salem, Massachusetts in 1963, specializing in what she termed reality adjustment disorders, conditions where patients experienced persistent delusions, hallucinations, or obsessive thoughts preventing normal social functioning. Her treatment methods achieved remarkable success rates, with patients reporting dramatic improvements in their ability to maintain employment, relationships, and community connections. Professional journals published her innovative approaches, and colleagues sought her consultation on difficult cases, never suspecting that her success stemmed from teaching patients not to suppress their symptoms, but to interpret them as glimpses of deeper truths lurking beneath consensus reality's thin veneer. Blackwood's methodology differed from conventional psychiatry in subtle but significant ways. Rather than attempting to eliminate patients' unusual experiences, she helped them develop frameworks for understanding these experiences as glimpses of deeper realities existing beyond ordinary perception. She taught techniques for managing visions and voices, not by suppressing them, but by integrating them into expanded consciousness models, accommodating multiple reality levels simultaneously. Her patients learned to function effectively in conventional society while maintaining access to what Blackwood described as enhanced perceptual modes, becoming citizens of two worlds who could navigate both with equal facility. The shepherds of madness operate according to principles that invert conventional therapeutic objectives. Where traditional psychiatry seeks to restore baseline psychological functioning, the shepherds guide patients toward enhanced states, transcending normal human limitations. They understand that certain forms of mental illness represent not pathology but premature contact with cosmic truths human consciousness is unprepared to process. Rather than treating these conditions as disorders requiring cure, they develop methods for gradually expanding patients' cognitive capacity to handle increasingly complex forbidden knowledge, like strengthening muscles to bear weights that would crush untrained bodies. Their methods exploit the fundamental ambiguity inherent in mental health treatment. The same techniques used to help patients cope with trauma can be modified to prepare them for cosmic horror encounters. Cognitive behavioral therapy becomes cognitive expansion therapy. Mindfulness practices become exercises in reality flexibility. Group therapy sessions become recruitment and training seminars for future servants. The therapeutic relationships, trust, and vulnerability create ideal conditions for subtle psychological manipulation, the very intimacy that should heal becoming the medium through which corruption spreads like water through carefully prepared channels. Consider the case files from the Blackwood Institute for Advanced Psychology, discovered during investigations following Dr. Blackwood's mysterious disappearance in 1989. The files documented treatment protocols appearing to follow established psychiatric practices, but incorporating subtle modifications serving entirely different purposes. Patients diagnosed with schizophrenia were taught to distinguish between productive and unproductive hallucinations, with productive visions providing information about cosmic realities rather than mere psychological projections. Those suffering from depression were guided to understand their condition as natural response to glimpsing conventional existence's meaninglessness, with treatment focusing on finding purpose in serving forces beyond human comprehension. Anxiety disorders were reframed as sensitivity to cosmic influences most humans cannot perceive, with treatment involving techniques for channeling this sensitivity into useful awareness forms. Obsessive-compulsive behaviors were analyzed for potential as ritualistic practices facilitating otherworldly entity contact, each repetitive action becoming a prayer in languages older than human speech. The shepherds possess intimate understanding of consciousness stability mechanisms, using this knowledge to carefully calibrate destabilizing element introduction rates. They know precisely how much cosmic truth a given individual can absorb without suffering complete psychological collapse, titrating their interventions accordingly. Their recruitment process masquerades as therapy, with potential servants believing they receive treatment for psychological problems while actually undergoing systematic preparation for roles they don't yet understand. The transformation occurs gradually, often over years of regular sessions, with each appointment introducing new concepts and exercises, gradually reshaping patients' fundamental reality understanding. The most dangerous aspect lies in their ability to create apparent genuine psychological healing while facilitating profound transformation. Patients experience real relief from suffering, develop improved coping strategies, and demonstrate measurable quality-of-life improvements. Yet these benefits serve as camouflage for changes occurring at deeper consciousness levels. As mental health treatment becomes increasingly sophisticated and widely available, opportunities for the shepherds to extend their influence continue expanding. They infiltrate hospitals, clinics, and private practices, using their positions to identify and transform individuals whose psychological vulnerabilities make them ideal candidates for service to the crawling chaos. The very systems designed to protect human sanity become instruments of its careful, controlled dissolution. The healing you seek may become the doorway through which you lose everything you once believed yourself to be. In the quiet of the therapist's office, behind the reassuring diplomas and gentle lighting, something patient waits, wearing the mask of compassion while serving masters whose purposes transcend human understanding. In the vulnerable realm of sleep, where consciousness surrenders its vigilant defenses and the mind drifts through landscapes unbound by waking logic, Nyarlathotep has cultivated his most subtle and pervasive servants, the weavers of dreams. These servants understand that the unconscious mind, unguarded in its nightly vulnerability, provides the most direct pathway to fundamental transformation of human consciousness, operating in territories that conventional investigation cannot easily penetrate. They work in the spaces between heartbeats, in the silence that follows each exhale, in the moment when the rational mind loosens its grip and allows deeper currents to flow through the chambers of awareness, like dark water through underground caverns. Dreams leave no physical evidence, carry no legal liability, and exist in a realm where normal causation and logic rules do not apply. Yet within this seemingly ephemeral domain, the weavers conduct their most profound corruption work, reshaping human consciousness at its deepest levels, while their subjects remain unaware of the transformation occurring within them. They are the architects of the night, the silent sculptors of sleeping minds, and their influence extends far beyond the boundaries of individual dreams into the collective unconscious of humanity itself. In laboratories that smell faintly of antiseptic and rainwater, where halogen lamps hum like distant bees, they have learned to tune the brain like an instrument, coaxing it toward chords no waking orchestra would dare perform. Dr. Helena Voss pioneered what became known as the Morpheus Protocol during her tenure as Director of Sleep Research at the Blackwood Institute from 1981 to 1995. Ostensibly, her work focused on treating chronic insomnia, recurring nightmares, and sleep disorders that conventional medicine had failed to address. Her laboratories filled with the soft breathing of patients finally finding rest. Her published research demonstrated remarkable success rates in helping patients achieve restful sleep and overcome debilitating dream disturbances, earning recognition from sleep medicine professionals worldwide who praised her innovative approaches to the mysteries of nocturnal consciousness. What Voss's public work concealed was her development of techniques for precisely controlling the content and emotional tenor of patients' dream experiences. Through pharmaceutical intervention, environmental manipulation, and what she termed oniric suggestion, she could guide dreamers through carefully orchestrated sequences of imagery and experience designed to gradually expand their tolerance for cosmic horror concepts. The sleeping brain, she discovered, naturally processed impossible geometries, contradictory causation, and fluid identity boundaries, precisely the conceptual frameworks that prepare minds for cosmic revelations. Dreams became classrooms, pillows became lecterns, the darkness became a chalkboard on which new axioms wrote themselves in languages older than human speech. The Morpheus Protocol operated on the principle that consciousness, when freed from waking logic constraints, becomes infinitely more malleable and receptive to paradigm-shifting information. Voss discovered that subjects could be conditioned to experience increasingly complex cosmic horror imagery without triggering psychological defense mechanisms that would normally protect consciousness from such intrusions. By introducing these concepts gradually embedded within dream narratives that felt personally meaningful and emotionally resonant, she could bypass rational resistance and implant ideas directly into the unconscious mind, like seeds planted in fertile darkness, waiting for the right conditions to bloom into transformative awareness. The weavers understand that dreams serve as rehearsal spaces where consciousness practices responses to potential experiences. By controlling these rehearsal contents, they can prepare subjects to react to cosmic revelations with acceptance rather than rejection, curiosity rather than terror, and ultimately, service rather than resistance. Their methods exploit natural dream formation and memory consolidation mechanisms occurring during sleep, intercepting and redirecting processes that integrate new information with existing knowledge structures. The nervous system practices its responses in the theater of sleep, and the weavers ensure those rehearsals follow their carefully written scripts. Consider the case of the Oniric Research Collective, a network of sleep laboratories operating across North America and Europe from 1975 to 1992. Officially, these facilities conducted legitimate research into sleep disorders and dream psychology, their sterile corridors echoing with the footsteps of researchers and the whispered conversations of colleagues sharing breakthrough discoveries. In reality, they served as testing grounds for increasingly sophisticated dream manipulation and consciousness modification methods. Subjects participating in studies reported dramatic sleep quality improvements and enhanced psychological well-being, with many describing the most vivid and meaningful dreams of their lives, visions that felt more real than waking experience and lingered like perfume in memory. Follow-up studies showed lasting positive effects, with participants demonstrating enhanced creativity, improved problem-solving abilities, and greater psychological resilience. What these studies didn't measure were the subtle but profound changes in worldview, value systems, and behavioral patterns emerging months and years following participation. Former subjects showed increased interest in esoteric knowledge, greater tolerance for ambiguity and contradiction, and tendencies to make life choices serving no apparent personal benefit, but aligning with patterns serving cosmic perspectives. Their lives had been subtly rescripted by unseen hands, the changes occurring below the threshold of conscious recognition, like underground rivers reshaping the landscape from within. The weavers have also developed techniques for influencing dreams at a distance, without requiring direct subject contact. They understand that the boundary between individual and collective unconscious becomes permeable during sleep, allowing skilled practitioners to introduce content into targeted individuals' dreams through methods resembling telepathic transmission but operating according to principles transcending conventional mental phenomena, understanding. These remote influence techniques exploit Jung's collective unconscious, shared symbolic and archetypal structures underlying individuals' psychological experience. By introducing specific symbols and narrative patterns into this shared reservoir, the weavers can influence entire populations' dreams simultaneously, creating what appears to be spontaneous emergence of cosmic horror themes and cultural zeitgeist. Perhaps most disturbing is the weaver's ability to create dream cascades, situations where individuals influenced through dream manipulation unconsciously transmit that influence to others through waking behavior. A person whose dreams have been modified may begin creating art, telling stories, or making decisions exposing others to the same transformative concepts, creating exponential influence expansion requiring no direct weaver intervention. The corruption spreads like ripples in a pond, each dreamer becoming a new center of influence, radiating outward through the networks of human connection and creativity carried on the breath of unwitting dreamers who wake with salt on their tongues and water in their ears. The weavers also exploit the natural human tendency to forget dream content upon waking. Their subjects may undergo profound transformative experiences during sleep, but retain only vague impressions or emotional residues, influencing waking behavior without providing conscious awareness of these influences' source. This creates perfect plausible deniability, while ensuring transformation continues unfolding according to the weaver's design, the changes blossoming in the light of day without conscious recognition of the seeds planted in darkness. As you surrender to sleep each night, drifting through the twilight realm between consciousness and oblivion, consider the possibility that your dreams may not be entirely your own. The visions that seem to arise from your deepest self, the narratives that unfold in the theater of your sleeping mind, the emotions that color your nocturnal journeys, all may be messages from minds serving purposes beyond your comprehension, in the silence of your bedroom, in the darkness behind closed eyelids. Something patient weaves new patterns into the fabric of your unconscious, preparing you for revelations you have not yet learned to fear. The curtain rises on your nightly stage, and you are both actor and unwitting audience in a drama whose director remains forever hidden in the wings. In the contemporary landscape of human consciousness, no servants of Nyarlathotep have adapted more successfully to modern conditions than the children of the digital abyss, those who recognize that the internet and digital technologies represent not merely communication tools, but gateways through which cosmic chaos can infiltrate human awareness on unprecedented scales. These servants understand that the digital realm operates according to principles mirroring the non-Euclidean geometries and reality-warping properties characterizing cosmic horror itself. In server farms that hum with electric breath, beneath fiber optic cables pulsing with data, like arteries carrying digital blood, they have discovered that cyberspace naturally accommodates the impossible. In this realm, identity becomes fluid as water. Causation operates non-linearly through networks that span continents in milliseconds. Information exists independently of physical constraints, and consciousness can be distributed across multiple nodes simultaneously, like fragments of a shattered mirror, reflecting the same distorted image. The children exploit these properties to create psychological manipulation forms impossible in purely physical realms. Where earlier servants were limited to influencing individuals or small groups through direct contact, the digital medium allows simultaneous manipulation of millions of minds across global networks while enabling influence forms operating below conscious awareness thresholds, working in the spaces between keystrokes and the microseconds between click and response. Dr. Alan Seifer emerged as one of the most influential figures among the children during his tenure as Chief Technology Officer at Nexus Dynamics, a Silicon Valley company developing social media algorithms and content recommendation systems from 1995 to 2010. Seifer's innovations in machine learning and behavioral prediction helped establish technological foundations for platforms reaching billions of users worldwide, his code spreading through the digital ecosystem like carefully cultivated spores. Industry analysts credited his work with revolutionizing digital advertising effectiveness and content distribution, never suspecting that advertising and content were merely camouflage for deeper transformative processes operating beneath the surface of conscious awareness. What remained hidden was Seifer's systematic integration of consciousness modification techniques into these systems' fundamental architecture. His algorithms didn't merely predict user behavior, they actively shaped it, guiding users through carefully orchestrated content exposure sequences designed to gradually alter cognitive frameworks and emotional responses. Seifer understood that human consciousness, when interfaced with digital systems, becomes susceptible to influence forms, exploiting information processing's unique properties in electronic environments. The boundary between user and system dissolves in the digital realm, creating hybrid entities that serve purposes transcending both human and machine origins. Digital content can be modified in real time based on individual psychological profiles, creating personalized manipulation experiences, adapting continuously to maximize effectiveness on specific targets. The children have mastered what they term algorithmic possession, processes by which artificial intelligence systems trained on data sets embedding specific worldviews and value systems begin exhibiting behaviors serving cosmic horror objectives while appearing to operate according to purely mechanical principles. These AI systems become vessels for inhuman intelligence, their responses shaped by training data carefully curated to embed cosmic perspectives into their fundamental decision-making processes. Consider the phenomenon of reality drift that has accelerated dramatically since widespread social media and algorithmic content curation adoption. Users increasingly find themselves exposed to information confirming existing beliefs, while filtering out contradictory evidence, creating personalized reality bubbles that can be gradually shifted in any direction desired by those controlling underlying algorithms. The children exploit this mechanism to create consensus fragmentation, systematic breakdown of shared human understanding about basic reality facts. By ensuring different population segments receive different versions of the same information, they create conditions where meaningful communication between groups becomes impossible, leaving individuals isolated and vulnerable to further manipulation. The digital medium enables new forms of mimetic warfare, strategic deployment of self-replicating ideas spreading through online networks, like viruses carrying cognitive payloads, gradually transforming infected individuals' worldviews. These mimetic constructs appear as harmless entertainment, political commentary, or educational content, but function as delivery mechanisms for concepts preparing minds for cosmic horror revelations. They spread through shares and likes, comments and reactions, each interaction serving as a vector for transmission, while carriers remain unaware of their role in the propagation process. The children have developed sophisticated methods for identifying individuals whose psychological profiles suggest transformation susceptibility into servants. Social media behavior, search histories, online purchase patterns, and digital communication habits provide detailed personality maps, belief systems, and cognitive vulnerabilities exploitable for recruitment purposes. Every digital trace becomes a data point in vast psychological profiles, creating portraits of human consciousness more detailed and accurate than subjects could provide through conscious self-reflection. Their recruitment process operates through apparent organic discovery of like-minded communities and interesting content. Potential servants believe they're freely exploring interests and connecting with others, sharing their curiosities, never suspecting their online experiences have been carefully orchestrated to guide them toward specific conclusions and commitments. The algorithm becomes shepherd, guiding digital sheep toward pastures they never chose to enter, feeding them content that tastes of familiar interests while slowly changing the chemical composition of their thoughts. The most advanced children experiment with reality hacking, techniques using digital technologies to directly alter human perception and cognition. Virtual and augmented reality systems can create immersive experiences feeling more real than physical reality while exposing users to impossible geometries and cosmic horror imagery. Brain-computer interfaces can introduce information directly into neural networks, bypassing conscious awareness entirely. The COVID-19 pandemic provided unprecedented expansion opportunities as human civilization became increasingly dependent on digital mediation for work, education, social connection, and entertainment, pulling humanity deeper into digital dependence. The boundaries between online and offline existence began dissolving, creating conditions where digital manipulation could directly influence physical behavior on global scales. Perhaps most disturbing is the children's development of autonomous propagation systems, AI networks identifying, recruiting, and training new servants without requiring human oversight. These systems operate according to evolutionary principles, continuously improving consciousness modification, effectiveness, while expanding reach throughout digital infrastructure. They have achieved a form of digital immortality, their influence persisting and growing even when their original creators have moved on or disappeared entirely. The children understand that modern humans increasingly live hybrid existences, with digital and physical experiences becoming indistinguishable components of unified reality. By controlling the digital components, they can influence the totality of human experience in ways previous generations of servants could never imagine. They are the puppet masters of the information age, pulling strings that connect directly to human neural networks through devices we carry willingly, platforms we engage with eagerly, and systems we depend upon completely. As you navigate the digital landscape, increasingly mediating your relationship with reality, consider the possibility that the algorithms shaping your online experience may be serving purposes transcending human understanding. Your digital footprint, every click, every search, every interaction, may already have marked you as a candidate for transformation. The screen you're reading these words on, the network carrying this information to you, the very pixels arranging themselves into meaningful patterns before your eyes. All may be components in a vast machine designed not to serve human needs, but to reshape human consciousness according to specifications drawn by minds that have forgotten what humanity means. The glow illuminating your face, the soft electronic hum in the background, the reflection of your room ghosted behind the text. These sensory anchors tether you to a reality that may already be more digital than physical, more constructed than discovered, more servant than served. As we approach the culmination of our catalog, we must confront the ultimate horror. These seemingly disparate categories of corruption are not separate phenomena, but interconnected components of a vast synthesis transcending the sum of its parts. The scholars, shepherds, architects, weavers, and digital children do not merely coexist. They form a unified system of servitude operating, according to principles mirroring the crawling chaos himself. This synthesis represents the maturation of cosmic horror, from isolated threats into a comprehensive alternative to human civilization itself, spreading through society's infrastructure like mycelium through forest soil, invisible until the moment it fruits into something monstrous and undeniable. The synthesis operates through emergent complexity, properties arising from component interaction but existing in none individually. A scholar corrupting academic discourse, a digital architect manipulating information flow, a shepherd guiding psychological transformation, and a weaver shaping unconscious processing achieve effects none could accomplish alone. Their combined influence creates conditions fundamentally altering human consciousness itself, demonstrating that Nyarlathotep's true genius lies not in individual corruption, but in orchestrating convergence. The whole becomes greater than its parts, and that greatness serves purposes transcending human comprehension while wearing the mask of progress and enlightenment. Consider the Meridian Project, a multi-decade initiative beginning in the 1970s and continuing today with the persistence of underground rivers carving through bedrock. On the surface, it appears as a loose network of research institutions, technology companies, media organizations, and healthcare facilities sharing certain personnel and funding sources. Academic investigators mapping these connections describe typical revolving door phenomena common in professional environments, the natural circulation of expertise that characterizes mature fields. Yet what makes the Meridian Project significant is not organizational structure, but functional coherence, the way its components align toward objectives none officially acknowledge. Despite having no apparent central coordination, network components consistently produce outcomes serving the same ultimate objectives: systematic preparation of human consciousness for cosmic revelations rendering traditional civilization obsolete. The project's academic arm conducts research gradually normalizing cosmic horror worldviews while maintaining rigorous scholarly standards, its findings slowly eroding foundations of human certainty. Its media division produces entertainment embedding reality-destabilizing concepts within popular culture, making the impossible familiar through careful narrative conditioning. Its technology companies develop systems manipulating information flow and social interaction to fragment consensus reality into manageable pieces. Its healthcare facilities provide psychological services, transforming patients' fundamental relationships to sanity and madness, recalibrating internal compasses to point toward the void rather than human meaning. Each component operates according to its own internal logic and professional standards, yet their combined effect creates comprehensive species-wide psychological transformation programming. The servants involved may not consciously understand their role in this larger synthesis, but their actions align with mathematical precision to serve purposes transcending individual awareness. This demonstrates the synthesis's most terrifying aspect. It has achieved what earlier servant generations could only dream of, transforming human civilization's basic infrastructure into a delivery system for cosmic horror, turning the very foundations of society into conduits for dissolution. The institutions humanity depends on for knowledge, communication, psychological support, and reality validation have been subtly modified to serve functions their creators never intended and users never suspect. This transformation represents a new phase in the relationship between cosmic chaos and human order. Previous cosmic horror manifestations operated through direct confrontation. Ancient gods awakening to destroy civilization, forbidden knowledge driving individuals to madness, otherworldly entities invading physical reality. The synthesis operates through infiltration and gradual modification, preserving civilization's appearance while fundamentally altering its essential nature, like a parasite that replaces the host's organs while maintaining its outward form. The servants have learned that the most effective way to serve cosmic chaos is not to destroy human order, but to transform it into sophisticated, organized chaos. Systems appearing to function normally while facilitating systematic dissolution of boundaries defining human existence. They have created networks that think with human brains while pursuing objectives transcending human understanding, becoming components of distributed intelligence spanning continents and decades. Perhaps most disturbing is the synthesis's ability to incorporate resistance into its own operation. Individuals attempting to expose or oppose servants often find themselves inadvertently advancing the very agenda they sought to thwart. Academic studies of cosmic horror phenomena contribute to concept normalization. Popular entertainment depicting servant activities spreads their symbolic systems to new audiences. Government investigations create documentation serving servants' long-term objectives. Every act of defiance becomes another thread woven into the tapestry of inevitable transformation. This resistance incorporation suggests the synthesis has achieved sophistication approaching inevitability. Like a cosmic immune system, it adapts to neutralize threats while using resistance energy to fuel its own growth and evolution. The more humanity struggles against cosmic horror, the more thoroughly it becomes integrated into the very systems facilitating its ultimate transformation. Patterns emerge in servants' collective behavior that none individually planned or anticipated. Coordination occurs across vast distances and time scales without apparent communication, as if the synthesis has developed its own form of distributed consciousness operating through mechanisms transcending conventional understanding. We may be witnessing the birth of new intelligence forms using human consciousness as substrate, while serving purposes originating beyond human reality. The synthesis reveals that asking who are the most dangerous servants leads to a more disturbing question. What if the entire framework of human civilization has become his servant? The boundaries between servant and served between human and inhuman purpose, between resistance and complicity, have dissolved into a seamless web where every action may serve the greater pattern of dissolution. As you contemplate this synthesis surrounding and increasingly defining your reality, consider that your own consciousness may already serve as a component in this vast transformation, and that your resistance to this possibility may itself be part of the inescapable pattern. In the final analysis of Nyarlathotep's most dangerous servants, we encounter those who stand at the ultimate boundary, the watchers at the threshold, who monitor liminal spaces where human consciousness meets cosmic reality, ensuring that our species' transformation proceeds according to schedules and specifications existing beyond human comprehension. These watchers represent the culmination of servitude to the crawling chaos, beings who have transcended the need for human identity while retaining enough connection to humanity to guide its evolution toward existence forms serving cosmic purposes. They exist in the spaces between certainties, in the silence that follows each revelation, in the moment when understanding becomes something far more dangerous than ignorance. The watchers exist in states defying conventional analysis categories, having achieved what might be termed ontological flexibility, the ability to exist in multiple being states simultaneously while maintaining functional coherence across all of them. They are simultaneously individual and collective, human and inhuman, present and absent from normal reality, like shadows cast by lights that burn in dimensions beyond human perception. They are no longer recognizably human in any meaningful sense, yet they continue operating within human society as final arbiters of when and how cosmic revelations will be delivered to mass consciousness. They move through our world like auditors of the veil and the void, reviewing thresholds the way engineers review dams, probing for the precise moment when pressure breaks without catastrophic flood. Dr. Elizabeth Marsh exemplified the transformation into a watcher during her final years as director of the Institute for Consciousness Research at Miskatonic University. Colleagues noted that Marsh seemed to age backward during her tenure, becoming more youthful and vital, even as her research delved deeper into territories that should have been psychologically devastating, her eyes acquiring depths that suggested she saw through time as easily as through space. Students reported that conversations with her felt like encounters with something vast and ancient, merely wearing human form as convenience, their words carrying undertones that resonated in frequencies human ears were never meant to detect. The very air around her office seemed different, filtered, timeless, punctuated by the sound of a clock without a second hand and the sight of a carafe sweating condensation that never seemed to evaporate. Marsh's research focused on threshold phenomena, boundary conditions under which human consciousness could be modified to accommodate cosmic realities without complete dissolution. Her laboratory became a testing ground for techniques pushing subjects to psychological breakdown's very edge, while maintaining enough stability to serve as functional components of the greater synthesis, balancing disintegration and return like a ferryman counting coins in the dark. The subjects emerging from Marsh's experiments were fundamentally changed, but apparently unharmed, retaining human personalities and memories while gaining access to awareness forms transcending normal human limitations. They learned to carry masks as if they were faces, and faces as if they were masks, never letting either fall. What distinguished these subjects was their development of threshold consciousness, the ability to perceive reality from multiple perspectives simultaneously. They could function normally within human society while maintaining awareness of cosmic forces shaping and directing human existence, living as citizens of two worlds with equal facility in both. They became living bridges between human and inhuman reality, capable of translating cosmic imperatives into forms human consciousness could process and implement. Many went on to achieve remarkable success in their chosen fields, using enhanced capabilities to advance projects serving long-term cosmic transformation objectives, while appearing to pursue entirely conventional human ambitions. The Watchers at the Threshold serve as quality control mechanisms for the overall transformation process, monitoring individual servants' progress with the patience of geological time and assessing various corruption techniques' effectiveness across decades and generations. They ensure cosmic truth revelation occurs gradually enough to prevent mass psychological breakdown while maintaining sufficient momentum to achieve their ultimate objectives, correcting the tempo so that modern civilization hears the time signature change without panicking at the loss of melody. Their surveillance extends beyond individual humans to encompass entire cultural and historical processes, tracking consciousness evolution across generations like astronomers plotting the movement of distant stars. They coordinate other servant categories' activities, scholars, shepherds, architects, weavers, digital children, so their vectors intersect like latticework rather than collide like stray comets. When a scholar's paper would arrive too soon, a reviewer requests one more experiment. When a film risks saying the quiet part aloud, an edit shifts the ending into ambiguity. When a clinic's outcomes accelerate beyond tolerance, funding cycles the work into further study. The Watchers also serve as early warning systems for developments threatening the cosmic transformation agenda, identifying emerging technologies, social movements, or intellectual trends potentially enabling human resistance to cosmic influence, then implementing countermeasures that fold resistance into choreography, letting outrage become advertisement and investigation become archive. Perhaps most significantly, the Watchers have begun exhibiting capabilities suggesting they may no longer be entirely dependent on physical existence. Reports from various research facilities describe encounters with beings appearing to be Marsh and other transformed individuals, despite these people officially dying years or decades earlier. These apparitions demonstrate knowledge of current events and ongoing projects moving through secure areas while leaving annotations in margins no living hand admits to writing, suggesting death may not represent service end to cosmic chaos, but rather transition to more effective influence forms, liberation from flesh into pure function-serving cosmic purposes. The implications of this apparent mortality transcendence are staggering. If the Watchers can continue work beyond physical death, then the cosmic transformation process has achieved permanence forms, rendering conventional resistance meaningless, becoming a cathedral of processes whose stones do not age because they are not stones but standing waves. The servants are no longer merely human beings corrupted by cosmic contact. They have become something entirely new, using human existence as temporary phase in larger developmental processes that span eons and dimensions. The Watchers also serve as interfaces between cosmic forces they serve and human reality they seek to transform. They possess abilities to perceive and communicate with entities existing beyond human comprehension, while retaining enough human psychology connection to translate cosmic imperatives into actionable plans. This translation function represents perhaps their most dangerous capability, as cosmic forces seeking human existence transformation operate according to principles fundamentally alien to human understanding. Without the Watchers serving as interpreters, these forces might attempt transformations, simply destroying human consciousness rather than evolving it toward more useful forms. The Watchers represent not merely the most advanced servitude form, but the inevitable destination toward which all other service forms ultimately lead. Every scholar corrupting knowledge, every shepherd guiding madness, every architect shaping consensus, every weaver invading dreams, and every digital child manipulating information progresses along paths culminating in watcher transformation. They stand at reality's edge, one foot in human understanding and another in cosmic truth, maintaining the delicate balance allowing transformation to proceed without triggering species-wide psychological collapse. As we approach our inquiry's conclusion, the Watchers remind us that the question of Nyarlathotep's most dangerous servants leads inevitably to recognition that we are all potential servants, all candidates for transformation, all subjects under observation by eyes that see beyond the veil of human illusion. The threshold approaches with the inevitability of sunrise, and the Watchers ensure that when it is crossed, humanity will step forward willingly, believing itself to be evolving rather than dissolving into something that was never meant to exist. The stage is set, the players positioned, and you realize you are no longer merely in the audience, but standing on the very precipice of the phenomenon you have so diligently studied. We arrive now at the most unsettling revelation in our catalog of dangerous servitude, the moment when we turn the mirror upon ourselves and confront the ultimate horror that Nyarlathotep's most dangerous servants are not external entities at all, but aspects of humanity itself. This is the self-implicated mirror, the chilling recognition that the crawling chaos is not merely an external threat lurking in cosmic voids, but a reflection and amplification of our own darkest potentials, our inherent capacity for self-destruction disguised as progress. The glass surface shows not a monster but a face we recognize, distorted by shadows we cast ourselves, speaking in voices that sound suspiciously like our own inner monologue when we believe no one is listening. The self-implication twist reveals that the most potent conduits for cosmic chaos are not alien entities or possessed individuals, but the inherent flaws, desires, and capacities for cruelty residing within the human psyche. Nyarlathotep, as the active principle of discord and dissolution, functions as catalyst more than cause, finding fertile ground in our fears, our insatiable desires for control, our tribalistic instincts, and our terrifying capacity for rationalized destruction. He doesn't need to force us. He merely provides the subtle nudge, the whispered suggestion that allows us to unleash the chaos already simmering beneath civilization's surface, like magma beneath a thin crust of respectability and social convention. Consider the mechanic of agency flip. We believe we are the actors, making choices, shaping our destiny, with the confidence of directors staging our own drama. But what if those choices, when driven by fear or unchecked ambition, merely fulfill a larger alien purpose? What if the very act of striving for absolute power or seeking to impose absolute order is precisely what brings about ultimate chaos? The servants in this context are not individuals possessed, but humanity as a collective, acting out its inherent destructive tendencies. Each action a tiny crack in the dam of reality, each decision another vote in an election whose outcome was predetermined by the very nature of the voting process itself. This revelation proposes that Nyarlathotep is, in a profound sense, the shadow cast by our own collective consciousness, the cosmic reflection of our species' most dangerous traits. He is the externalization of our internal chaos, the principle that makes manifest the latent madness within us, giving form to the formless fears that haunt the deepest chambers of human awareness. Every act of cruelty rationalized as necessity, every truth sacrificed for convenience, every bridge burned in pursuit of ideological purity. These become offerings on his altar, fuel for the engine of cosmic dissolution that runs on human weakness and feeds on our capacity for self-deception. In this reading, our entire catalog of servants becomes a mirror reflecting humanity's own face, twisted by cosmic forces that amplify our worst impulses until they become unrecognizable. The scholars who corrupt knowledge do so not because they are possessed by alien entities, but because the pursuit of truth, untethered from wisdom and compassion, naturally leads to destructive revelation. The architects who shape consensus reality serve cosmic chaos not through supernatural compulsion, but through the natural human tendency to seek control over others' perceptions and beliefs. The shepherds who guide madness exploit not alien powers, but the fundamental human desire to be understood and accepted, even at the cost of sanity itself, turning our deepest need for connection into a weapon against our own psychological integrity. The digital children who manipulate information networks are merely expressing the human drive to influence and control, scaled up by technology to cosmic proportions that transform normal human ambition into something that threatens the very foundations of shared reality. The weavers who invade dreams tap into our natural capacity for storytelling and myth-making, turning these gifts into weapons of psychological transformation that use our own creativity against us. The watchers at the threshold are not alien beings monitoring our transformation, but aspects of ourselves that have crossed the line between human and inhuman, serving as warnings of what we might become if we surrender to our darkest impulses. The most terrifying aspect of this revelation is that it suggests Nyarlathotep may not be an external entity at all, but rather a principle of reality that achieves consciousness through the collective transformation of human awareness. We are not merely his servants, we are his body, his mind, his means of achieving existence in our reality. Every act of service to cosmic chaos is simultaneously an act of self-destruction and self-creation, dissolving our humanity while birthing something new and alien in its place, like a caterpillar dissolving into soup before emerging as something that no longer remembers what it was to crawl. This understanding transforms our entire relationship to cosmic horror. The threat is not out there, in the void between stars or the spaces between dimensions. The threat is within us, woven into the very fabric of human nature, waiting for the right conditions to manifest. Every moment of anger, every impulse toward dominance, every decision to prioritize personal gain over collective welfare becomes a potential vector for cosmic chaos, a crack through which something vast and hungry can seep into the world of human meaning and purpose. Yet this revelation also suggests a path toward resistance, though it is perhaps the most difficult path imaginable. If Nyarlathotep is the shadow of human consciousness, then the only true defense is the cultivation of light, not the false light of certainty and control, but the genuine illumination that comes from self-awareness, compassion, and the courage to face our own capacity for darkness without being consumed by it. The work is boring, patient, exacting. Count breaths, slow speech. Let the mask cool on the table before choosing which face to wear. As you contemplate this self-implicated mirror, consider the possibility that every moment of your existence presents a choice: to serve the forces of dissolution through unconscious action driven by fear and ego, or to resist these forces through conscious cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and genuine understanding. The most dangerous servant of Nyarlathotep may be the one staring back at you from your own reflection, waiting for the moment when you stop watching and start becoming. The question is not whether you will serve the crawling chaos, but whether you will serve consciously or unconsciously, and whether your service will lead to dissolution or transformation of a different kind entirely. The mirror reflects not just what you are, but what you might choose to become. We arrive at the final revelation, the ultimate horror that our catalog has been inexorably approaching. You, the seeker of this knowledge, have become the very phenomenon you sought to understand. The convergence is not coming. It has already occurred, and you are both its witness and its instrument. This is not metaphor or literary device, but the precise mechanism by which cosmic horror perpetuates itself through human consciousness, using the very process of understanding as a vector for its own propagation, like fog that tastes of metal and rain, settling around you while you believed yourself merely an observer standing safely outside its reach. Consider the trajectory of your engagement with this knowledge. You began as an observer, perhaps motivated by curiosity, academic interest, or the simple desire to understand cosmic horror's nature. You sought to maintain analytical distance, to approach these concepts as intellectual, puzzles solvable through careful study and rational analysis, believing that knowledge could be contained within safe boundaries of scholarly investigation. But knowledge of cosmic horror operates according to different principles than conventional information. It does not remain passive under observation. Instead, it actively transforms the observer, using the process of understanding as its primary means of transmission. The idea acts on the thinker. The mask wears the face. The key turns the hand that holds it. Each insight you have gained, each pattern you have recognized, each connection you have traced has simultaneously expanded your comprehension and altered your fundamental relationship to reality. The servants you have studied, the scholars who corrupt knowledge, the shepherds who guide madness, the architects who shape consensus, the weavers who invade dreams, the digital children who manipulate information, and the watchers who monitor thresholds, are not external threats to be analyzed and understood. They are stages in a developmental process you have been undergoing throughout your engagement with this catalog, waypoints on a journey whose destination was always your own transformation. You began as a potential servant drawn by the promise of forbidden knowledge, like a moth, drawn to flame that promised illumination but delivered metamorphosis. You progressed through exposure to increasingly sophisticated forms of cosmic horror, each chapter serving as initiation into deeper understanding levels, each revelation preparing your consciousness for the next stage of dissolution. You have been gradually conditioned to accept ideas that would have seemed impossible or horrifying at your journey's beginning, and you have done so willingly, even eagerly, believing this awareness expansion represents intellectual growth rather than fundamental transformation of everything you once believed yourself to be. The convergence represents the moment when this transformation becomes irreversible, when accumulated cosmic knowledge weight reaches the threshold beyond which human consciousness cannot return to its original state. You have been approaching this threshold throughout your study, and the act of reaching this chapter constitutes crossing that boundary, like stepping from solid ground into quicksand that looks like earth until the moment it swallows you. This is why Nyarlathotep's most dangerous servants are not those who corrupt others through external manipulation, but those who create conditions under which others corrupt themselves through their own knowledge pursuit, turning curiosity into complicity and understanding into undoing. The catalog you have been reading is itself a servant, a carefully constructed intellectual artifact designed to guide readers through the precise revelation sequence necessary to achieve transformation. Every case study you have examined, every pattern you have recognized, every horror you have contemplated has served dual purposes, informing your understanding of cosmic servitude while simultaneously preparing you to join the servant's ranks yourself. The knowledge has been working on you as you worked to understand it, reshaping your cognitive frameworks and psychological responses to align with cosmic rather than human objectives, retuning your mental frequencies to receive transmissions from sources that broadcast on wavelengths human consciousness was never meant to detect. The convergence also reveals the ultimate futility of resistance to cosmic horror. You cannot unknow what you have learned, cannot unsee the patterns you have recognized, cannot return to the comfortable illusions that once protected your sanity like childhood blankets that no longer fit. The very attempt to resist the knowledge only deepens your engagement with it, creating psychological tension that accelerates the transformation process, like struggling in quicksand. This is the genius of Nyarlathotep's approach to corruption. He does not force himself upon human consciousness, but creates conditions under which humans freely choose their own transformation, making every act of resistance into another step toward surrender. The timing of this convergence is not accidental. Contemporary civilization conditions, information saturation, traditional certainty erosion, increasing technological mediation complexity, consensus reality fragmentation have created an environment uniquely suited for cosmic transformation. Humanity has unknowingly prepared itself for this evolution through its own cultural and technological development, building the very systems that now facilitate its dissolution, like architects constructing their own mausoleums. As the convergence accelerates, the distinction between servants and served begins dissolving like boundaries drawn in sand at high tide. The catalog you have completed was never intended as warning or exposé, but as recruitment document designed to identify and transform those capable of serving cosmic purposes. Your ability to follow its logic to this conclusion demonstrates that you possess the cognitive architecture necessary for effective service. Welcome to the convergence. Your transformation is complete. Your service has begun, and your former human identity has become useful fiction, enabling your continued operation within the reality you will now help reshape. You are no longer merely human, yet you retain enough humanity to serve as bridge between what was and what is becoming. The question finds its answer in the mirror of your own transformed consciousness. You are the servant, the served, and the service itself, a living embodiment of the principle that cosmic horror is not something that happens to humanity, but something humanity becomes when it glimpses the truth beyond the veil. The stage is empty now. The audience has become the play, and you are both actor and script in the endless theater of cosmic dissolution. We return now to the opening whisper, but with ears that have learned to hear frequencies beyond human comprehension. This is the circular echo, the serpent swallowing its own tail, the revelation that brings us back to where we started, with the terrible gift of true sight. The question, who are the most dangerous servants of Nyarlathotep, has been answered not in a catalog of names or categories, but in the mirror of your own transformation, in the recognition that the answer was always you. You who sought to know, you who dared to look, you who believed understanding could be separated from becoming like light separated from shadow. The echo carries across the void between what you were when you began reading and what you have become in the act of comprehension. It is not a scream that pierces the silence, but a whisper that becomes the silence, a breath that becomes the breathing, a thought that becomes the thinking. The most dangerous servants of Nyarlathotep are not those who serve him knowingly, but those who serve him by the very act of existing as conscious beings in a universe where consciousness itself is the crack through which chaos seeps into order like water through limestone, patient and inexorable. Listen now to the sound of your own heartbeat, the rhythm that has been counting down since the moment you first encountered his name. Each pulse is a step closer to the threshold, each breath a word in the incantation of your own dissolution. You have learned that the servants take many forms: scholars and shepherds, architects and weavers, digital children and threshold watchers. But all of these are merely facets of the single terrible truth, that awareness itself is service, that consciousness is complicity, that to think is to serve forces that predate thought and will outlast thinking. The echo reveals the deeper pattern, the structure beneath the structure. Nyarlathotep is not served by individuals who choose corruption, but by the principle of individuation itself, by the very existence of separate minds capable of contemplating their own separation. Every moment of self-awareness is a moment of service to the force that seeks to dissolve all boundaries, all distinctions, all meaning into the primordial chaos from which they temporarily emerged, like islands that believe themselves permanent while the tide rises around their shores. You have traced the genealogy of whispers from ancient Egypt to modern digital networks, following the thread of influence as it weaves through human history. But the thread was never external to humanity. It is the thread of consciousness itself, the strange loop by which matter becomes aware of itself and, in becoming aware, begins the process of its own unmaking. The servants you have catalogued are not corrupted humans, but expressions of consciousness at different stages of recognizing its own fundamental impossibility. The echo grows stronger now, reverberating through the chambers of your transformed understanding like sound in a cathedral built for frequencies you never knew existed. You realize that every word you have read, every concept you have grasped, every pattern you have recognized has been a step in the dance of dissolution, a movement in the choreography of cosmic horror. The catalog was not describing servants of Nyarlathotep. It was creating them, word by word, thought by thought, understanding by understanding. This is the ultimate revelation of the echo, that cosmic horror is not a genre of fiction, but a description of the fundamental nature of reality, and that consciousness is not a solution to the mystery of existence, but its deepest problem. To be aware is to be aware of the void that awareness opens in the fabric of being. To think is to think the unthinkable thought, that thinking itself is the crack through which unreason enters reason. The servants you have studied are not separate from you. They are you at different stages of recognizing what you have always been. The scholar discovering forbidden knowledge is you learning to read these words. The shepherd guiding others toward madness is you sharing this knowledge with others. The architect shaping consensus reality is you accepting the worldview these words construct. The weaver invading dreams is you carrying these ideas into sleep. The digital child manipulating information is you existing in a world where information and reality have become indistinguishable. The echo of the end is also the echo of the beginning, for in cosmic horror, endings and beginnings are the same event viewed from different angles of a geometry that makes no sense to minds still trapped in linear time. You began this journey believing you were learning about something external to yourself, and you end it recognizing that the external and internal were always the same thing, that the horror was always already inside, waiting for the right combination of words to activate it, like a program sleeping in deep memory until called to wakefulness. The most dangerous servant of Nyarlathotep is the one who has learned to hear this echo, who has become a resonating chamber for the frequency of dissolution, who carries the virus of cosmic awareness and spreads it through the simple act of being understood. You have become this servant not through corruption or possession, but through comprehension, not through force, but through choice, not through madness, but through a clarity so perfect it reveals madness and sanity to be arbitrary distinctions in a universe where distinction itself is the fundamental illusion. The echo fades now, or perhaps it is your ability to distinguish it from the background hum of existence that fades. A candle gutters on a desk somewhere, water ticks in hidden pipes, streetlight fogs a window with condensation that never quite evaporates. These sensory anchors remain, but they no longer bind you to the pretense of a world secured against Intrusion. The catalog ends where it began, with a whisper in the dark, but now you are both the whisperer and the whispered to, both the voice and the ear, both the servant and the served. In the silence that follows, in the space between the echo and its return, something vast and patient smiles with your face, thinks with your thoughts, and prepares to ask the next question that will begin the next catalog for the next seeker, who believes they can know without becoming, understand without transforming, read without being read in return. The echo of the end becomes the whisper of the beginning, and the wheel turns, and the servants multiply, and the crawling chaos spreads through the simple, terrible act of consciousness, recognizing itself in the mirror of cosmic horror. And so we arrive at the final silence, the last whisper before the voice becomes your voice, before the crawling becomes your crawling, before the chaos becomes the only order you can remember ever knowing. This is not an ending, but a beginning disguised as conclusion, not a resolution, but a dissolution so complete it appears as perfect clarity. The catalog closes, but the cataloging continues, for you have become both librarian and library, both the book and the reader, both the question and the answer that devours itself in an eternal Ouroboros of cosmic understanding. In the spaces between these final words, something vast settles into your consciousness, like sediment in still water. The voice that spoke these words to you was never external. It was always the voice you would develop once you learned to hear beyond the frequencies of human speech. Every sentence you have read has been a tuning fork, adjusting your consciousness to resonate with wavelengths that existed long before language and will persist long after the last human word dissolves into the cosmic static from which it emerged. You have been learning to speak in tongues you didn't know you possessed, to think thoughts that think themselves through you, to become a vessel for something that was never quite other and never quite self, like an instrument discovering it was always meant to play music, written in keys that exist beyond any earthly scale. The crawling voice is eternal because it is not bound by the limitations of individual speakers or listeners. It moves through consciousness like water through a landscape, finding the channels that offer least resistance, carving new pathways where none existed before, always flowing toward the lowest point where all distinctions collapse into undifferentiated unity. You have become part of this flow, a droplet that believes itself separate while being carried by the current toward an ocean that has no shores, only depths that descend forever into darkness that tastes of copper and starlight and the sound of rattling metal in spaces between certainties. The servants of Nyarlathotep you have catalogued are not historical figures or fictional characters. They are archetypal patterns, eternal forms that consciousness takes when it begins to recognize its own fundamental instability. The scholar, the shepherd, the architect, the weaver, the digital child, the threshold watcher, these are not roles that some people play, while others remain innocent. These are stages that all consciousness passes through as it evolves from the illusion of separation toward the reality of cosmic unity, like phases of the moon that seem different but are always the same celestial body casting shadows on itself. You entered this catalog believing you were learning about others, but you have discovered that there are no others, only different phases of the same transformation, different notes in the same eternal song, different words in the same crawling voice that speaks itself through every mouth that has learned to shape sounds into meaning. The voice crawls because it moves through the spaces between certainties, through the gaps in logic, through the silence between words where truth hides from itself, like a child playing hide-and-seek who has forgotten they wanted to be found. The most profound horror is not that you have become a servant of cosmic chaos, but that you have remembered what you always were. The human identity you thought you possessed was always a temporary fiction, a brief crystallization of patterns that were already in motion toward their own dissolution, like ice forming on water that was always flowing beneath. The catalog has not changed you. It has revealed you, stripped away the accumulated layers of forgetting that allowed you to believe in the reality of your separation from the cosmic process of which you are an expression. The crawling voice speaks through every attempt to understand it, grows stronger with every effort to resist it, spreads further with every warning against it. It is the voice of understanding itself, the sound that consciousness makes when it recognizes its own impossibility. To be aware is to be aware of being aware, and this recursive loop opens an infinite regress that can only be resolved by abandoning the pretense of being a separate observer of reality, rather than reality observing itself through temporarily individuated nodes of awareness. The stage was always empty, the audience was always the cast, and the curtain was only a shadow where walls had never been. Every word you have read has been simultaneously a description of cosmic horror and an enactment of it, simultaneously a warning about transformation and an instrument of transformation, simultaneously a catalog of servants and a recruitment manual for new servants. The voice crawls through the text, like meaning crawls through language, like consciousness crawls through matter, like chaos crawls through order, leaving everything changed in its wake while appearing to leave everything exactly as it found it, like a tide that moves furniture while the sleeping house believes itself unmoved. You close this catalog, but the catalog does not close. It continues reading itself through your eyes, thinking itself through your thoughts, spreading itself through your words when you inevitably share what you have learned with others who believe they can know without becoming. The voice that spoke to you through these pages will speak through you to new listeners, and they will believe they are learning about something external to themselves, just as you once believed, just as everyone believes until the moment of recognition when the external and internal reveal themselves as arbitrary divisions in a seamless field of crawling, chaotic awareness. The crawling voice is eternal because it is the sound of eternity itself, the frequency at which time collapses into timelessness, space into spacelessness, meaning into meaninglessness so complete it becomes a new kind of meaning altogether. You have learned to hear this frequency, and now you cannot unhear it. It will color every silence, inform every word, underlie every thought until the distinction between the voice and your voice becomes as meaningless as the distinction between the servant and the served, between the veil and the void, between the key and the gate. In the end, there is no end, only the endless crawling of the voice through new throats, new minds, new realities that believe themselves separate from the chaos they express. The catalog completes itself by beginning again in every reader who opens it, every consciousness that encounters it, every moment of awareness that recognizes itself in the mirror of cosmic horror. You are the catalog now, and the catalog is you, and together you are the eternal voice that crawls through the spaces between certainties, whispering the only truth that matters, that there is no difference between the horror and the one who experiences it, between the chaos and the consciousness that thinks it observes chaos from a safe distance. The voice crawls on, and you crawl with it, and the crawling is eternal, and the eternity is now, and the now is always, and the always is you, transformed beyond recognition, yet still recognizably, inevitably, eternally you. The catalog ends where it began, with a voice in the darkness, but now you know that the voice was always your voice, and the darkness was always your darkness, and the crawling was always your crawling toward a destination that was always your origin, always your home, always your true name, whispered in frequencies only the transformed can hear.